Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Wanda Wilson, Executive Director of Oakland Planning and Development. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Sorry, let me turn my phone down. Wilson, Executive Director of Oakland Planning. Do that every time. Sorry about that. So we'll get going with tonight's development activities meeting. We have one item on the agenda and one set of announcements to make of two things that are on the agenda for our Oakland-wide meeting, which is next Tuesday evening, also at 6 o'clock on Zoom. So we have two presentations next week at that meeting. Plans from a developer who would like to get some input on a couple of different concepts for developing a piece of property at 3738 Dawson Street. And information from PWSA on their lead line replacements that they're doing in the neighborhood this construction season. So again, that's Tuesday night at 6 p.m. also on Zoom and Facebook Live. So we'll go right into the presentation tonight. It's about the set of row houses on Bates Street between Zulema and the Boulevard of the Allies. And to present this evening is John Kamen.
So thank you,
John,
Wanda.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Wanda?
I can, yeah.
Great. And we really appreciate you putting this development activities meeting together. If it's okay, I'd like to, are you able to screen share there, Wanda? Are you doing it?
It's my colleague, Kathy, and so she'll advance the slides when you indicate to move to the next slide.
Great, thank you. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with these properties. They are essentially the 12 row homes that exist between the Boulevard of the Allies along Bates Street and Zulema Street. They have been in poor condition for a while. And were originally part of the Oakland Gateway Ventures project, which has been in process for a number of years. But my client, Walnut Capital, has reached an agreement to go ahead and to acquire these properties and is looking to demolish them. The properties situated in this certain section of the Oakland Public Realm District. In order to go ahead and get a demolition permit, we have to have a development activities meeting. So that's the purpose of us being here tonight. There's really nothing planned for them at this particular point. Our plan is to acquire essentially this entire block here as we have it. We are not acquiring Zulema Park, but just the area outlined in red. And to demolish the structures. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So this may be a little bit hard to see, but this is essentially our survey and interim site plan of the site. What it shows is that our plan is to essentially go ahead and to take down all the structures on the site and then to go ahead and to put some seating on top of that and have that become green space when we're done. I should also note that the billboards on the site will also be removed. Do you want to go to the next slide, please? And this is the finals, what we call sort of stabilized seating slide, which just shows as our plan is to essentially grade everything to a essentially flat level, sort of consistent with the elevation of the ground in Zulema Park right now, and go ahead and to seed those and stabilize them off. That way, to the people who are driving up and down Bates Street and along Zulema and along the boulevard, all they'll see is essentially a grass area. So that's really the gist of the presentation that we have. It's pretty simple. As we said, we certainly know that when and if there would be any development on this site, we would be coming back and having a full presentation with the OPDC as well as the Planning Commission. But at this point, the only thing that we are contemplating right now is the demolition of the site. So happy.
John, can you talk about your time frame?
Yeah, so we have actually applied for a demolition permit from the city. That's what triggered the development activities meeting and request. My understanding is that we're going to be on for planning commission approval sometime at the end of July, with our hope to just get in right before their August recess. And assuming we get planning commission approval in July, our intent is to demolish it in August.
Well, that's good.
And I know people would be interested to know about how you're coordinating with Pitt's return to campus in terms of the demolition plans for timing, because that can impact traffic coming to the neighborhoods. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So I think our plan would be to get this done the first or second week of August. We have lined up our contractor, Noralco, who is a well-established city demolition contractor, and they will be coordinating any sort of closures that are necessary with the city and with the university. The good news is that we think if we're able to get this done in the first 2 weeks of August, that we will essentially miss any interaction or problems that come with that. And right now, I don't believe that all of Bates Street would have to be closed, just perhaps one lane and traffic may be routed while they're doing that. There is significant, what I would call structural work that has to be done in taking them down. So one lane of the street probably will be closed. And then there's some, filling of foundations, that type of thing that has to be done. But in terms of how we would interact with that, I think this would be a relatively quick project. There's not a whole lot of complicated nature to the actual demolition of the structures.
Okay, now I'll go through the questions that people have put in the chat, and I'll verbalize those for you to answer. And if people who are participating in the meeting continue to have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will get to those questions. So there's a question about if you can clarify again the plan for the billboards that face the Boulevard of the Allies.
Yeah, our plan is to demolish them and have them removed.
And you have secured rights to those?
Yes. Well, I should say after we close, we'll have rights to do that.
And when does the closing take place?
That's a little bit of an open question. We're hopeful to have it done in the first or second week of July.
And there's a question about any lighting that's being planned, and a question about who's going to cut the grass. So if you can speak to maintenance and lighting.
Sure. So there's no lighting that's being planned for the site right now. It's just going to be essentially a green yard. And in terms of the maintenance of the grass, that will be done by Walnut Capital's maintenance team.
So then there's questions about the plans for the future of the site. So how long has Walnut Capital been planning acquisition of this site, and what is the intent that your client has for acquiring it?
So I think we've been working on this site for probably 6 months, maybe a little bit more. And I think we don't know. I think the plans are very much open as to what's going to happen with this portion of the site, and how it fits into perhaps a bigger plan for Oakland. But right now, we don't have any specific plans other than to demolish it.
And people have read in the paper that your client plans to sell the site to the University of Pittsburgh. Is that true?
So yes, eventually after we get title to it and go ahead and demolish it and basically stabilize it, our plan is to go ahead and to sell it to the university.
And what is the time frame for making proposals about future uses for the site?
Oh, I mean, that's a long-term discussion. So I think that a lot of that's going to involve the university's determination and some thoughts as to how it proceeds forwards, but I can't really speak for them.
And so you mentioned that maybe a lane of Bates would be closed during the demolition. Would any part of Zulema be closed?
I don't believe so. I think maybe there's that little intersection corner where Zulema goes to, you can make the right turn from Zulema onto Bates. Maybe that's would be closed as they were just demolishing that house on the corner, but I don't think it would be for long, and particularly that portion wouldn't have to be closed as they were demolishing the rest of the structures.
And what can you tell us about the court fines that are on the properties from the length of time that they've been problem properties and have received multiple citations and fines about their condition? What happens with those?
Yeah, so all of the outstanding fines, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax liens. There's other judgments against the property. All of those are getting paid at the closing.
And at the time of demolition and seeding, you'll also be cleaning up the litter. I would presume that would be part of the plan. So that would be in August. Somebody's asking, how soon can you cut the grass and clean up the litter?
Yeah, I mean, as soon that would all happen as part of the demolition on the site. I mean, once we take title, we're happy to get the grass cut. While we wait for the permits, we won't let that sit. But in terms of overall site, that once you take it down, you have to fill and then you have to seed and stabilize. So that takes a little while to grow, though it's not a bad time to be growing in the late summer, early fall. But once we get title, we would go ahead and maintain it, certainly.
There's a question about public utilities and whether they're impacted during demolition.
They will not be.
And there's a question about who will cut the grass in the meantime, and I think you answered that it would stay in its current state so far as you're aware, right? Until you had described with your previous answer that as soon as you closed, you could.
Right. I can't cut grass on ground I don't own yet, but we'll cut it as soon as we own it.
Right. So if the plan is to sell the property to Pitt, why wouldn't Pitt do the demolition themselves?
I think that's just a business decision that was made as to how it happened, but we're working in collaboration with them.
And whose idea was for the university to acquire the property? Walnut Capital's or the university's? I think that's outside of my knowledge as to how that whole discussion went down. I could tell you that I think they work collaboratively, and this is a site that has long been identified by both Walnut and Pitt as a problem site. So I think they're happy to be able to figure out a solution here that's going to clean up what is a crucial entrance to Oakland. And is this site in Pitt's institutional master plan?
It is not.
Can you speak to why the university would not buy the property directly? Why is Walnut Capital the pass-through?
I can't really talk about that. So I can tell you that I think we've been working on this for a very long time, and I know that our interest in it may have predated them, but I can't give you any of those details.
What did Walnut Capital pay for acquisition of the property and clearing the liens?
So, I mean, our price is going to be, it's a little bit of a complicated transaction because we have a mortgage foreclosure that we had to buy and some other things, but we're going to be all in essentially, at 5 million to change.
There's a question about lead testing. I'm thinking that maybe that's related to what has to happen in order to do the demolition properly. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we've had a full environmental done on the site by our phase one by our environmental engineer. The site has been sampled, tested, and there's no issues in terms of hazardous substances. We have a very capable demolition contractor, and they'll manage anything that came up, but at this point, the site is clean.
And can you speak to stormwater management after demolition?
So there won't be any stormwater management because it will be grass. So we're going to take the site out, take the structures down. It will be planted grass. So there should be, water will be infiltrating into the ground, and there shouldn't be any runoff from it once it's stabilized.
There's an associated comment that, that grass isn't necessarily stormwater management, but your answer to the question is you don't have a plan for stormwater management.
Right, nor would it be required because of the fact that there's not any structures or impervious being built on the property. The water will infiltrate into the ground, and that's where it will go.
Then an additional question of when do you expect to close with the University of Pittsburgh?
So sometime in the fall.
John, you're the presenter on this actual demolition question, but we could make available an opportunity if anybody from the university wanted to comment on their plans for this site. Or in the chat, if they would like to reply, I could verbalize that for people. And then there's the question of, will your contractor provide notice prior to the start of demolition?
Sure, we're happy to coordinate that, Wanda, through you, and allow you to, once that date is formalized, we're happy to go ahead and let you know, and then you can go ahead and distribute it out to all of your mailing lists, et cetera, and the people on this call as well.
Yeah, and I can confirm that OPDC would be happy to do that. So once you have a date, and especially if you know when any more information about lane closures as well, we'll definitely let everybody know about, the start date for demolition, especially nearby neighbors, and then we will push it out to our entire list, update the website, and get it out on social media.
Great. Yeah, we're happy to share that with you. Like I said, we've already done our homework on it, so we know what needs to be done. It's just a question of walking through the process.
I'm checking Facebook as well to see if anybody has any comments there. And then also checking to see if anybody is by phone only. There is one person who seems to have joined specifically by phone. So if you are not able to see the chat or to use the chat to ask a question, you could unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. It looks like a number that ends 0499.
Yeah, I think that's Greg Perlman calling in, Wanda, so I don't think he has any questions.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I don't see, it doesn't appear that there's anyone else who's phone only. I think everybody else is able to use the chat. Another question about the Zulema Parklet and how demolition would affect that.
So I don't think it will have any effect on it other than the fact that there would be demolition going on the other side of it. But at this point, I don't think there would be any effect on it whatsoever.
I think we'll give people a couple more seconds here. If you have a question to put in the chat, I'm just checking through again that we covered everything. We have a comment. You know, I think generally there's I'd say pretty serious concern. I think you can probably tell from the comments and questions that community members are discussing about the plans and, you know, sort of the concept of buying it on spec with no plan. Would you like to speak to that, John?
Well, I mean, look, I think like anything, this is a long range opportunistic play in terms of getting a piece of property that's critical to Oakland and I think critical to clean up the eyesore and the mess that it's been. And I think that there's a lot of thoughts as to how this piece and other pieces of property could integrate into the community and the neighborhood. So I think it's a little bit of a stay tuned, but as we have plans and as things develop, we'll certainly be back. But you know, at this point, this is, you know, step one in a multi-step journey to figure out how to best use this piece of property.
Yeah, there is a question.
As you know,
something on Facebook as well. What is the square footage of this space?
Yeah, so if you want to blow up, if you want to go back a slide and blow up the survey a little bit, I can do it on this side. I apologize, my eyes aren't great. Just blow it up. Yeah, I think it's roughly I can't find it quickly on the survey, but I believe it's like maybe 4/10 of an acre.
And there's lots of comment and discussion in the chat about Pitt's interest and Pitt's intentions. I understand that they weren't part of the presentation related to the demolition of the structures themselves. If they choose, again, I'll give a minute here if somebody would like to, somebody from the university would like to unmute and turn their video on, you'd have a chance to talk.
Yeah. So again,
I would suffice it to say that there's grave concern on the part of community members in Oakland related to this. And I think it's very important that that be known publicly and that people are well aware of the extent to which this is of grave concern to the Oakland community. And for OPDC's part, we will make sure that there is future conversation with the, about this parcel and its future. given the fact that tonight, all we're knowing is about the demolition plan, because that's all that's required for this particular city required development activities meeting. It's required because of the zoning requiring it for prior to the planning commission hearing on the demolition proposal.
Right, and Wanda, I would just say though that, you know, anything in the future that has to happen on this property will have to come through a public process, and OPDC and the community will certainly be involved in those discussions as to what it's going to be. But as I said, this is step one of a you know, multi-step process.
There's a question about sidewalks. As part of the demolition, what's the plans for either repairing or replacing the sidewalks?
I think any of the sidewalk that's damaged or that is in an unacceptable condition will be repaired and or replaced.
We have another question via Facebook about what is the amount that Pitt will pay for the property?
So essentially, Pitt is going to be, and this is public information, but essentially they're going to be reimbursing Walnut for what it spends on that. So essentially, what we're paying plus our cost. By the way, on the survey, just to answer the prior question, it's 0.4243 acres. So I said 0.4 of an acre is 0.42 of an acre. So 18,484 square feet.
Again, just comments so that everyone is aware that Oakland residents, you know, will not necessarily be welcoming Pitt's expansion into this area of central Oakland.
And I'm sorry, I had the baby earlier, so I couldn't unmute, but I just want everyone to know that I can't speak to any plans for the site right now, but I want everyone to know that, you know, I'm here on behalf of CGR. I'm hearing, recording everything that's being said, all your comments. And as we have more information to share, you know, that Jamie and I will be out at every community meeting to share it when we have it. And we're always available for you to, you know, ping us with any questions that you might have. So please don't hesitate to do that.
I think we've covered the questions that people have and the level of concern and dissatisfaction that residents are expressing. I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that I understand that there's concern, but I think that, again, this is the first step in a multi-step process, and certainly the demolition of these structures. I mean, the amount of city violations, fines, tax liens on them is really mind-boggling. So I think the demolition of these structures is a welcome first start.
Just so all attendees know, we will have minutes of this meeting complete and posted on the project page on our website for this project. And you can also go to the calendar section of our website, click on the meeting information about this meeting. That would also take you to the information and to recording. And as we have more information, as we mentioned, once we get information on the demolition date, any other information specifically we will post it there and circulate it out to the community, and also update that section of the project page with the Planning Commission hearing, which is July 27th? Is
So,
that the Planning Commission date?
yeah, I believe that there's a briefing before, but the briefing is not when they take public comment. But I think the briefing is here. Let me just confirm for you. Yeah, so the briefing would be on the 13th of July, and then the hearing and action would be on the 27th.
And the briefing, if people cannot offer comment at Planning Commission briefings, but they are open to the public. So members of the public are able to attend and see the briefing. So if that would be at 1 o'clock on that day, July 13th. Then the Planning Commission hearings themselves are start at 2 o'clock. So that's on July 27th. And that is when the Planning Commission can take public comment again, it would be on the demolition proposal is what would be before Planning Commission on that date, would be specifically the proposal to demolish the structures. Couple more questions before we wrap up. Can you speak to how this parcel has relevance to Walnut Capital's holdings on McKee?
So, I mean, it certainly has geographical proximity to it. But I don't know that it has relevance to it other than that.
And is there a written signed agreement with Pitt in place?
So we have an agreement with Pitt, but I don't want to comment on the terms of it.
So then there's, I think, a quote for maybe from a committee meeting at the university, that the university will seek approval for construction of a suitable building at a future committee meeting.
Yeah, again, I can't really talk about, I don't really know what the university's plans are for that. So I can't really speak to what it is. But again, anything that would happen in the future would have to come through a long planning process.
Then there's a question about Walnut Capital and the Halkett property and buying that. Can you speak to that transaction?
So, no.
Can you talk about any waste management for the demolition? Any plan for recycling of material as part of the demolition?
So we did look into what could be sort of preserved or reused. And unfortunately, there's really nothing in this site that is able to be reused. Many of those buildings don't even have floors in them. So when you walk in, there's nothing but a gigantic hole to the basement. Most of the wood and the infrastructure inside them are rotted. They haven't had utility service for years. So there's really nothing of any sort of salvage value or salvageable in the entire site.
I think we're coming to where we're covering ground again in terms of the extent to which people are concerned about the university and Walnut Capital professing ignorance about future plans for the site. And so I think that, I think the community has made that well known this evening. That will also be documented in our meeting minutes for this meeting. And that people are finding it unconscionable and disappointing. But again, I believe, have covered people's questions and have made the concerns that the community have been expressed very clearly, and we're beginning to repeat ground that has been covered. So unless there's a new question that hasn't been addressed, we could complete this evening's meeting, and again, OPDC will share out additional information as we have it.
Great. I appreciate everybody coming in, and we look forward to getting these knocked out and getting rid of the eyesore.
Thanks to everyone for attending this evening. We appreciate your attendance and your participation in the meeting. And we'll conclude now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.